He was a single father who had walked away from the spotlight long ago until one rainy evening in a subway station, he heard a voice that stopped him cold. She was a nobody with a broken past and a borrowed guitar. But something in her song reached into the quietest corner of his soul. What happened next would not only change her life, it would awaken something he thought he had lost forever. This isn't a story about fame. It's a story about recognition, the kind that sees you before the world ever does that. If stories of redemption, quiet courage, and unexpected connection speak to your heart, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We share stories that move you, and sometimes even mend you. Now, settle in. This is A Single Dad Gave an Unknown Singer a Chance. Days later, she shocked the nation on live TV. Let's begin. Asterisk. The rain had been falling for hours, soft at first, then in heavy, drumming sheets that turned the streets of Manhattan into quiet rivers. Liam Carter stood behind the fogged window of his small vinyl-lined studio, watching as water slid in slow arcs down the glass. He hadn't written a song in over 3 years. Not since Hannah died. The studio had once been alive, cluttered with wires, scrawled lyrics taped to walls, coffee cups balanced precariously near mixing boards. Now it was too clean, too quiet. Only one guitar remained on the wall, its strings long since dulled by dust and silence. Liam exhaled and picked up the cardboard box at his feet. He placed the last few items inside: an old condenser mic, a faded photo of him and Hannah backstage at the Grammys, and a tattered sheet of lyrics she never got to finish. Her voice still echoed in the wood of this room. But tonight he would let it go. He closed the lid. Behind him, a soft voice piped up, interrupting the ritual. "Are you closing the studio, Daddy?" Liam turned. Ellie stood in the doorway, her hair damp from sleep, tiny in her oversized pajama shirt. She clutched a plush rabbit, one ear missing from too many wash cycles. She was 8 now and had her mother's eyes, soft, questioning. "Wide enough to hold the world." "I am," he said gently. "Time to let it rest." She patted closer, stepping over a coiled XLR cable. But what about music? Liam knelt and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. Music doesn't have to live in here anymore. Her lips pressed into a thoughtful line, the way Hannah used to do when she didn't quite believe him. "Do you still hear Mommy sing?" He closed his eyes. "Every night, sometimes," he whispered. She hugged him without another word, and for a moment, Liam allowed himself to crumble into the comfort of her small, steadfast arms. The silence around them wasn't empty. It was sacred. The next morning, Liam took Ellie's hand as they descended the steps into the subway station. The city was already stirring, vendors yelling, cars honking, steam curling from sewer grates like ghostly exhalations. But down here, underground, it was calmer. They waited for the train in their usual spot. Ellie loved to count the tile patterns on the wall while they waited. Liam leaned against the pillar, lost in thought, until a sound, faint, almost hesitant, cut through the platform noise. It was a voice, raw, soulful, not polished or commercial, but real, like gravel under bare feet. The melody floated out from farther down the tunnel, where the shadows swallowed the light. He turned his head. There, past the turnstiles and half hidden by a column, stood a young woman in a threadbare coat, her guitar case open at her feet. She wasn't performing for applause. She wasn't even facing the commuters. She sang with her eyes closed, hands wrapped around the microphone, stand like it was the only thing holding her together. Liam didn't recognize the song. It was probably hers, but he recognized the feeling. "Daddy," Ellie whispered, tugging at his coat. "She sings like Mommy." He looked down at his daughter. The words struck him like thunder in a canyon, echoing through a part of him he had boarded up long ago. Liam's gaze returned to the girl. She finished her song without fanfare. No one clapped. A few coins clinked into her case. She nodded politely and began packing up, her motions careful, almost clinical. She had the look of someone used to not being seen, but Liam had seen her, heard her, and something in him refused to walk away. An hour later, he found himself wandering the platform again, Ellie's hand in his, searching for her. She wasn't there. "You okay, Daddy?" Ellie asked, skipping along the yellow line. "Yeah," he said. But he wasn't. That night, after Ellie had gone to bed, Liam sat in his dark studio. The box of memories remained unopened in the corner. On a whim, or maybe guided by something deeper, he reached for the dusty cassette player on the shelf. He pressed play. Hannah's voice filled the room. Imperfect, radiant, alive. He closed his eyes, listening. At the end of the tape, a soft laugh played hers. "You always say you'll walk away, Liam," she said. "But you and music? You don't. Let go. You just go quiet." Liam smiled sadly. Maybe she was right. Maybe he had gone quiet for too long. He turned to the empty recording chair beside him. And for the first time in 3 years, he imagined someone else sitting there. Not Hannah, the girl from the subway. Who was she? Why did her voice feel like a door cracking open? He didn't know yet, but he intended to find out. The next day broke with cold air and gray light. Liam sat at the kitchen table, staring at the same bowl of oatmeal he'd made every morning for 3 years. Ellie hummed softly at the counter, using a crayon to draw little treble clefs on her napkin. "Daddy," she said between bites of banana, "are you still thinking about the singing lady?" Liam didn't answer right away. "I might be," he said eventually. "Do you think she's a real singer? Like, famous?" "I don't think so." "Then maybe you could help her," Ellie said plainly, as if it were the most obvious idea in the world. "Like you used to." Liam looked at her, at that strange, fearless kindness that only children possess, the kind that hadn't yet been broken by disappointment or caution. He wanted to protect it. But he also knew she was right. "Maybe," he murmured, "if I can find her again." That evening, Liam returned to the same subway platform. Alone this time. Rush hour pulsed around him, heels clacking, earbuds blaring, strangers brushing past without acknowledgement. But her voice was nowhere to be found. He paced up and down the station twice, scanning faces, lingering near every corner. Nothing. She was gone. Just as he turned to leave, he heard the faint scrape of a guitar case zipper behind one of the pillars. Then a low, whispered hum, familiar, unmistakable. She was there. She had changed. Clothes now in a faded hoodie and knit cap, but her posture was the same, slightly hunched, guarded. She tuned the guitar with the quiet reverence of someone handling something sacred. Liam hesitated. He hadn't approached a stranger like this in years, not since he'd been scouting voices in smoky backroom clubs and forgotten church choirs. back when his name still meant something in the industry. But this wasn't about the industry. He stepped forward. "Hey," he said, his voice steady but soft. "That song yesterday, did you write it?" The woman looked up, startled. Her eyes were hazel-clouded by weariness but alert. She sized him up instantly, like someone who'd learned to spot danger quickly. "I don't sell songs." She sighed. "I'm not looking to buy." She studied him for a beat, then returned to tightening a string. "You a cop?" He half smiled. "Not even close." "I don't do drugs either, if that's what this is about. I'm not here to arrest you," Liam said gently. "I'm here because your voice stopped me in my tracks." She paused. That got her attention, but she didn't show it. "That's a line." "It used to be," he admitted. "But I haven't used it in a very long time." Her eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" Liam exhaled slowly. "Liam Carter." The name floated in the space between them. She blinked. He could see the wheels turning. "You're the guy who produced Hannah Reeves," she said. "The Grammy album." "That's me. You dropped off the face of the earth. I had reasons." "I bet." She slung the guitar strap over her shoulder and began to move. "Wait," Liam said. "I'm not here to drag you into anything. I just want to talk. Maybe hear you sing again. Nothing more." She hesitated, one foot on the stairs. Her eyes darted between him and the shadows behind him, measuring risk. Then, to his surprise, she spoke. "One song," she said. "But not here." They walked in silence through side streets until they reached a small park, nestled between apartment buildings, half playground, half afterthought. She sat on a rusted bench and began tuning her guitar again, fingers moving with silent precision. "Ava," she said, not looking at him. "That's my name." "Thank you," Liam said. She played a few chords, then began to sing. No microphone, no stage lights. Just street lamp shadows and late autumn wind. Her voice carried anyway raw, with edges. Frayed by life, but steady in its own way. The lyrics weren't polished, but they were real. When she finished, she glanced at him like a dare. "Well?" "You're extraordinary," Liam said. She scoffed. "Don't. I'm serious." "Plenty of people say that." "It doesn't mean anything when you're broke and sleeping behind a laundromat." Liam leaned forward. "Let me help you." She stared at him. "You don't know me." "I don't have to. I know that voice." Ava's jaw tightened. "You think if you hand me a shot, I'll turn into the next Hannah Reeves? You want to be the guy who rescued the girl from the gutter, write a redemption story, sell it to Netflix?" Liam looked at her, unwavering. "No, I want to be the guy who gave someone a second chance. Because someone once did that for me, that shut her up." For a moment, they just sat in silence, the night air sharp between them. Then Eva stood. "I agree," she said cautiously. "What's in it for you?" "Nothing," Liam said. "Except maybe a reason to go back into the studio." She studied him. And for the first time, her expression softened, not quite trust, but the faintest pull of curiosity, of hope. "Don't make promises you can't keep," she said. "I won't," he replied. She nodded once, slung her guitar over her back, and walked into the night. Liam remained on the bench, heart oddly light for the first time in years. He didn't know what he had just set in motion, but something had shifted. and music quiet. Steady, miraculous, had finally stirred again. Rain returned the next evening like a restless visitor, tapping steadily against the windows of Liam's brownstone. Inside, the house glowed warm with soft lamplight and the faint hum of Ella Fitzgerald playing on vinyl. Ellie sat cross-legged on the living room rug, piecing together a puzzle of Van Gogh's Starry Night. She hummed to herself. Content. Liam stood in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup. He kept glancing at the door, though he pretended not to. It had been almost 24 hours since he last saw Eva in that park. She'd vanished into the night like a breath of steam. No phone number, no last name, not even a promise to return. Still, part of him believed she would. And when the knock finally came, it felt like something falling gently back into place. He opened the door. Eva stood there, soaked to the bone, her hoodie clinging to her thin frame. Her guitar case rested at her feet, and a plastic shopping bag hung from her wrist. Rain dripped from her lashes, but her eyes were steady. "I don't do charity," she said flatly. "So if this is pity, say so now. It's not." "You said studio, not shelter." "I said help," Liam replied. "Come in." Eva hesitated, then stepped over the threshold like it cost her something. Ellie looked up from her puzzle. Her face brightened instantly. "You came back." Eva blinked at her, visibly unsure how to respond. Yeah. You want to help with the sky part?" Ellie asked, holding up a handful of blue and yellow swirls. Eva glanced at Liam, who only smiled. Maybe later. They sat down to soup, chicken, and wild rice, simple but warm. Eva ate slowly, as if unused to the rhythm of shared meals. She didn't speak unless spoken to, and even then her answers were short, economical. But Ellie filled the space with chatter about school, her piano teacher, the weird boy who kept eating crayons. Eva listened, and gradually her grip on the spoon loosened. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. The corners of her mouth, just once, curved upward. After dinner, Ellie yawned and leaned against Liam's arm. "Can Eva stay over, Daddy?" "Just one night?" Liam looked at Eva. She was staring into her empty bowl, as if afraid of the answer. "Yes," he said. "She can." Eva didn't thank him. But when Ellie reached out and gently took her hand, she didn't pull away either. Later, Liam showed her the garage converted into a compact but functional studio. The walls were lined with soundproofing foam, the control panel still humming gently with power. 2 microphones stood ready, waiting. Eva walked slowly through the space, fingertips grazing a keyboard, a soundboard, a stool with a cushion worn thin from use. Her eyes didn't betray much, but Liam could feel the weight of her breath. "This is yours?" she asked. "It was Hannah's too." Eva nodded. "The woman from the tape." "You listened?" "Yeah. And?" She was honest. There's no filter in that kind of voice. She hated filters, Liam said, smiling faintly. Eva placed her guitar on the stand and sat on the stool. She glanced around, then muttered, "I don't know if I can do this." "You already did in the subway, in the park. Those were mine. Nobody watching. Nobody expecting. You don't owe anyone a perfect take," he said. "Just give me the truth." Eva looked at him for a long time. Then she turned to the mic. The first notes were tentative, like dipping a toe in icy water. But then she found the melody, and her voice bloomed, warm and aching. It wasn't flawless, but it was alive. It held grief, resilience, fragments of something deeply human. Liam didn't touch a single dial. He didn't need to. When she finished, the silence that followed was reverent. Eva exhaled and stood abruptly. "I'll sleep on the couch." "There's a guest room upstairs," Liam said. "Dry clothes on the bed." She looked like she might argue, but didn't. Instead, she picked up her bag and slipped out quietly. Liam stayed in the studio, staring at the waveform on the screen. The recording pulsed gently like a heartbeat. It was just past midnight when Liam heard the soft creak of stairs. He stepped into the hallway. Eva stood at the bottom, wrapped in a faded flannel shirt that once belonged to Hannah. She looked smaller in the oversized fabric, more vulnerable. Her arms were folded tightly across her chest. "I can't sleep," she said. "Want some tea?" She nodded. They sat on the porch with two mismatched mugs. The rain had softened to a drizzle, the city lights blurred and golden. "I ran away from home at 17, Eva said suddenly. "Mom was a mess. Dad left before I could walk. I got into music school, thought that'd fix everything. But it didn't. Nothing did." Liam didn't interrupt. "I met a producer," she continued. "Said he saw potential. Turned out he saw something else. When I said no, he made sure no one ever listened to me again." "I'm sorry," Liam said quietly. "Don't be. I survived, even if most days I don't feel like it. You deserve more than survival." Eva looked at him. Her eyes were dry, but something fragile hovered just behind them. "I don't know what I'm doing here," she admitted. "You and your daughter, you're like sunlight, and I'm just a voice," Liam said. "That needs to be heard." She stared at him. "And maybe," he added, "a soul that needs to be believed in." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, without warning, she reached across and took his hand. Not tightly, not for comfort, but for truth. Liam didn't pull away. The rain stopped. By morning, the rain had vanished, leaving behind the sharp scent of wet asphalt and the kind of sunlight that made even tired windows look hopeful. Liam stood in the kitchen making pancakes, his Sunday ritual, whether he wanted them or not. Ellie, still in her unicorn pajamas, sat at the table, scribbling notes for a story she was writing about a singing warrior princess. Eva entered the kitchen silently. She wore the same flannel shirt and a pair of Liam's old sweatpants cinched at the waist with a hair tie. Her face was clean but bare, like someone who hadn't worn comfort in a long time. "Coffee?" Liam asked, flipping a pancake. Eva nodded. "Please, and thank you for everything." Her voice was quiet, but no longer guarded. Ellie looked up from her notebook. "Did you sleep okay?" Eva hesitated, then offered a small smile. "I haven't had a bed in a while. Forgot what it feels like to not wake up sore." "Well," Ellie said, serious as a professor, "beds are important. So are pancakes, and people who don't lie." Liam raised a brow. "Anyone in this room lying, Professor?" Ellie giggled. Eva almost did. After breakfast, Liam asked, "Want to lay something down?" Eva stiffened. "Already?" "You're warm, honest. That's enough for today." She thought for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. "Okay." The studio was bright from the sunlight streaming through the skylight above the mixing board. It felt less like a place of work and more like a chapel, quiet, sacred, expectant. Eva sat on the stool, her guitar resting against her knee. She stared at the microphone for what felt like forever. "What do you want me to sing?" she asked. Liam shrugged. "Whatever you haven't let out yet." She didn't move. Then she opened her bag and pulled out a wrinkled page, folded and refolded so many times the edges had gone soft. Her eyes skimmed the lyrics, and a shadow crossed her features. "I wrote this a year ago. Never sang it for anyone." "You don't have to," Liam said. "But maybe I should," she whispered. She adjusted the mic, nodded once at Liam, then began to play. The guitar was simple open chords with a finger-picked rhythm, unpolished but rich. Then her voice joined and Liam froze. Not from the sound, but from the weight of it. The lyrics were about a train that never stopped at her platform. About a girl waving in the dark while the world blurred by. About not knowing whether to keep waiting or walk away. Her voice cracked. Once near the bridge, but she didn't stop. She leaned into it, pressed the pain into melody, and let it ride out. When the last chord faded, the silence in the studio felt holy. Liam exhaled. He hadn't realized he'd been holding his breath. Eva opened her eyes. Well, he didn't speak for a beat. Then, that's the kind of song that saves people. She blinked fast, like the compliment didn't fit. "You think it's worth recording? I think it's worth remembering." He saved the track, labeled it Train, and backed it up twice. Eva stood slowly, brushing her hands on her jeans. "I felt like I left something in there." "You did." "Is that what Hannah used to say?" "She used to say, if you're not tired after a take, you're not telling the truth." Eva smiled, soft and sad. "She sounds like someone I would have liked. You and her would have argued about Billie Holiday for hours. I'd win, only because she'd let you." They shared a quiet laugh. Something fragile passed between them. Not flirtation, not yet friendship, but a kind of recognition. A meeting place for two weary souls who understood what it meant to be cracked open and still sing. That afternoon, Liam emailed the demo to an old friend, Dina Holloway, a producer at Soundrise, a national singing competition known for spotlighting undiscovered voices. He didn't expect much. He hadn't spoken to Dina in over 4 years, not since Hannah's last performance. But within an hour, Dina replied, "Liam, is this her voice? Call me now." Dina, he stared at the message, then picked up his phone. The call lasted 17 minutes. By the end, Liam sat in stunned silence, blinking at the calendar on his desk. Eva had an invitation to audition in 3 days. That evening, Liam found Eva on the back steps, smoking a cigarette and watching Ellie chase fireflies in the yard. The golden light made her look less worn, almost young. "I heard back from a producer," he said. Eva turned her head slowly. "Yeah? She wants to see you. Soundrise, national spotlight. Big platform, big audience." Eva laughed sharp and bitter. "Right, because I'm so telegenic. She didn't see your face, just heard your voice, and that's enough." It was for her. Eva stared at the sky. 3 days, huh? 3 days. She took another drag. What if I freeze? What if I forget the lyrics? What if I get laughed off the stage? Liam sat beside her. What if you sing like you did this morning and change everything?" She didn't answer right away, just looked out at Ellie, who now held a single firefly cup between her palms. "You know," Eva said quietly, "it's not the stage I'm afraid of. It's what comes after." Liam nodded. "We'll take it one note at a time." Eva stubbed out her cigarette and looked at him. "You believe in me, and I'm still trying to believe in that." "You don't have to believe in me," Liam said. "You just have to believe in the sound you've been hiding." She didn't respond. But this time, when she stood, she didn't walk away. 3 days felt like the flutter of a page in a stiff breeze. Gone before it settled. On the morning of the audition, Eva stood in front of the bathroom mirror, her hands clenched on the porcelain sink. The steam from the shower still lingered in the air, curling around her like fog. But it couldn't hide the truth. She didn't recognize herself. The face staring back had smoother skin than she remembered, cleaned, rested, brushed through with the faintest hope. The shadows under her eyes hadn't vanished, but they looked less like burdens and more like history. Her cheekbones stood higher, her lips pressed into something dangerously close to determination. Behind her, Ellie peeked into the doorway, holding a folded piece of paper. "I made this for you." Eva turned. "What is it?" Ellie unfolded it carefully. It was a crayon drawing her and Eva on a giant stage. Eva was singing, her mouth open wide, and tiny stars surrounded her. In the corner, Liam stood with headphones and a smile. Above it all, Ellie had written in crooked capital letters, "You are loud enough now." Eva's chest clenched. She reached out and took the picture, swallowing hard. "Thank you," she whispered. "Daddy said you might be scared today," Ellie said matter-of-factly. "But I think scared people sing better. Like they mean it." Eva crouched down and hugged her. She didn't let go for a long time. The audition took place in a hotel ballroom that had been gutted and rearranged into a temporary television studio. Harsh lights hung from trusses above a makeshift stage. Cameras loomed like quiet predators. Clipboards shuffled in the hands of producers and interns. Hopefuls filled the hallway, some pacing with earbuds, others frozen in place. Eyes glazed with panic. Eva stood in line, her guitar case in one hand, Liam's jacket draped over her shoulders. He wasn't allowed backstage. But before they parted, he had squeezed her hand and said, "Sing like you have nothing to lose." She remembered that. She also remembered almost throwing up twice while waiting. When her name was called, she stepped into the spotlight. There were 3 judges, 2 women, 1 man, all framed by the familiar Soundrise backdrop. Eva recognized their faces from years of televised talent shows, sharp-eyed veterans with smiles that could melt or slice. "Name?" one asked. "Eva Monroe," she said, trying to steady her voice. "What will you be performing?" "A song I wrote. It's called Train. Original work." The man arched a brow. Bold. Eva nodded. "I've spent most of my life hiding my voice. I figure bold is overdue." The judges exchanged a glance approving, maybe, or maybe just intrigued. She took a deep breath and began to play. The first chord came out clean. So did the second. Her fingers shook, but the muscle memory held. She kept her eyes on the mic, not the judges, not the cameras. Then the words poured out. "I waited on platform 9, when the world rolled by like thunder, but no one ever called." My name. The room shifted. Gone were the lights, the audience, the anxiety. In their place, every cold night she'd spent curled against brick walls, every song she sang into alleyways, every dream she packed away in favor of survival, she let it all out. And this time, her voice didn't crack its sword. When she finished, there was silence, not polite, but electric. Then the woman in the center judge's seat leaned forward. Ava, where have you been hiding? Ava opened her mouth, but the words tangled. Hurt, she said finally. I've been hiding in hurt. The man next to her nodded slowly. Not anymore. Outside the ballroom, Liam waited by the lobby fountain, pretending to read a newspaper. His knee bounced. His mind raced. Then the door opened. Eva walked out slowly, guitar case still in hand, her face unreadable. Well? He asked. She stopped in front of him. They said I made it to the live round. Liam exhaled, shoulders collapsing. Invisible relief. You did it. Eva didn't smile right away. She looked down at her guitar case, then back up at him. You believed in me, she said. I saw you, Liam replied. That's all. No, it's not all. She took a shaky breath. You saw me. And then you stayed. For a moment. They simply looked at each other. No camera, no lights. Just two people who had seen the worst in themselves and still found the courage to reach across the darkness. I'm scared, Ava said quietly. You're supposed to be. What if I can't do it again? You will. She hesitated. Then, will you help me? Through this. Liam smiled, note by note. That evening, back at the house, Ellie insisted on a celebration. She made cardboard medals from cereal boxes and wrote, You won my heart on Ava's. She played a little piano tune she'd made up on the spot. Eva clapped along, laughed, even danced in a slow, awkward circle in the living room. Later, Liam watched her through the kitchen doorway as she helped Ellie pick out a bedtime story, and something in him settled. He didn't know what the coming weeks would bring. Fame, pressure, headlines, none of it scared him. What scared him was how easy it was, now, to imagine her staying, and how much he wanted her to. The night before Ava's live performance, the house was quieter than usual. Too quiet. Even Ellie noticed. She sat cross-legged on the living room rug, holding her stuffed rabbit by its only remaining ear. Is Ava nervous? She asked Liam, eyes wide. Liam glanced toward the closed guest room door. He hadn't seen Ava since dinner, when she picked at her food and barely spoke. She's a little nervous, he said, careful to keep his voice calm. Will she still sing tomorrow? I hope so. Ellie nodded, satisfied for now. But Liam wasn't. Upstairs, Eva stared at the dress hanging on the closet door. Dina Holloway's team had delivered it that afternoon, a shimmering navy blue gown. Elegant but simple, with subtle embroidery at the hem. It was beautiful. More beautiful than anything she had ever owned. It terrified her. She paced the room barefoot, her heart thudding a little too fast. The carpet felt foreign beneath her toes, the walls too clean, the mirror too honest. She had made it to the live round. She had a voice people finally wanted to hear. A platform she'd only dreamed of. So why did she feel like running? She sat on the bed, hands trembling in her lap. And then, without warning, the memories came fast, sharp, cruel. The man who told her she wasn't marketable enough. The record label exec who laughed when she brought in her demo. The time she sang for a crowd of 8 in a bar that stank of whiskey and despair, only to be told, pretty voice, but no story. And now? Now she had a story. But what if they didn't want it? What if they just wanted to dress her up, edit her down, and squeeze her into a box with a bow? Eva stood abruptly and grabbed her coat. The walls were closing and Liam was still in the kitchen when he heard the front door click open and close. He looked out the window and saw her walking away, hood up, shoulders hunched, guitar case slung tight across her back. He hesitated for a second, then called upstairs. "Ellie, I'll be right back, okay? Just checking on something." Without waiting for a reply, he grabbed his keys and followed her into the night. Eva didn't walk far. She ended up at the park down the street, the same rusted bench where she had sung for Liam the first time. The wind had picked up, teasing at the leaves, and the air carried the smell of damp earth and old memories. She sat, hugging her knees, the guitar resting beside her. Liam approached quietly and didn't speak. He just sat beside her, giving her space. For a long moment, neither said anything. Then Eva exhaled. "I can't do it." "Yes, you can." "No," she said, more forcefully. "You don't get it, Liam. I'm not afraid of the stage. I'm afraid of being seen." He turned to her. "You're already being seen." "No," she snapped. "Not really. People hear a song, they clap, they cry. But they don't see the years that made it. They don't see the nights I slept in a bus shelter with my guitar as a pillow. They don't see what it cost to sing like that." Liam's voice was low. "I see it." She looked at him, tears brimming. "And if I fail, if I mess up? If I finally get heard and they still say I'm not enough?" Liam didn't blink. Then, "I'll be there too." She blinked. "I didn't help you because I thought you'd win," he said. "I helped you because you sang like someone who still believed in beauty, even after the world tried to steal it. That's not something I could walk away from." Eva stared at him for a long time. Then her voice broke, barely a whisper. "I want to believe that." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, delicate object. A silver necklace with a tiny treble clef charm. "She used to wear this when she was scared," he said. Before going on stage, said it reminded her why she started. "Hannah?" He nodded. She wouldn't mind. Eva hesitated, then reached out and took it. The chain felt warm in her hand. She slipped it over her head. The next day, backstage at the Soundrise studio, Eva stood behind the curtain in her navy dress, her hands clutched tight around her mic. The crew moved like bees in a hive, checking cables, counting down, adjusting spotlights. She could hear the roar of the crowd, the echo of applause from the last contestant. The host's voice boomed from the speakers. She was next. Panic surged. What if she forgot the lyrics? What if her voice cracked? What if she looked out into the crowd and didn't see Liam? And then, right before the curtain lifted, she saw a familiar figure beyond the wings, standing by a camera, arms crossed, eyes steady. Liam. Not waving, not mouthing encouragement. Just there. Still. She closed her eyes, took one breath, and stepped forward. The stage was vast, blinding. Her heels clicked softly as she walked to the center. The lights painted halos on the floor. The audience disappeared into blackness. Eva raised the mic. Her fingers shook. She could hear the silence stretching, tensing. Then she heard Ellie's voice in her head. "You are loud enough now." She opened her mouth and sang. The opening verse was quite intimate. She barely moved, but the room leaned in. Every note was honest. Every lyric earned. By the time she hit the bridge, her voice had risen like a tide, strong, deliberate, fierce with everything she'd carried. The final note rang like a bell in a cathedral. And then silence. And then thunder. The audience rose, cheering, clapping, crying. The lights swirled. The judges stood. Somewhere in this sea of faces, she caught Liam's eyes, and this time she smiled. The performance went viral before dawn. By 3 a.m., clips of Ava's audition, her trembling hands, her aching voice, her final soaring note were spinning across YouTube, Twitter, and every corner of the internet where emotion had a place to live. Someone on TikTok captioned it, "The voice that found its way home." The hashtag Eva Monroe trended in 3 countries by sunrise, but Ava didn't know any of that. She was sitting barefoot on the floor of Liam's living room, a cup of tea in her hand, wrapped in one of Ellie's fluffy pink blankets. The dress had been folded neatly and tucked away. The necklace still hung around her neck. She looked at Liam with disbelief, then back at the TV, where her own face, frozen mid-song, flashed across the morning news. "I don't know this person," she sighed. "You will," Liam replied. She gave a nervous laugh. "Is that a promise or a warning?" "Both." The phone calls started before noon. Producers, journalists, talent agents. Even a late-night talk show sent an email requesting an interview. Dina Holloway called 3 times, ecstatic, raving about record deals and Spotify numbers and market momentum. Eva just stared at the phone like it might explode. "I'm not ready for this," she whispered. "You don't have to be," Liam said. "You just have to stay true." She looked at him. "That's harder than it sounds." "Yeah," he admitted. "It is." By the end of the week, Eva had been invited back for the semifinals. Her clip had crossed 10 million views. Someone posted a slowed-down piano version of her song on Instagram, and it became a trending audio. Teenagers lip-synced to it with glitter tears and filters. A fan account launched on day 4. By day 6, it had over 50,000 followers. And yet, in the middle of the noise, Eva felt still. Not numb, not overwhelmed. Just still. As if something deep inside her had settled into place. But the world doesn't celebrate you without trying to claim you. On the 7th day, a luxury car pulled up in front of Liam's house. A man in a tailored suit stepped out, early 40s, expensive haircut, shark smile. His name was Greg Mathers, and he had once been the most sought-after A&R executive in New York. He had also been the man who told Eva 3 years ago that her songs were too heavy and her look was too raw. The same man who blacklisted her from 2 open mics and made sure no label even returned her emails. She opened the door and froze. "Eva," Greg said, voice like polished glass, "didn't I always say you had something special?" Her mouth went dry. "You said I had potential, but not the look." He chuckled. "Well, I was wrong." He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "I'm here to talk opportunities," he continued. We've had interest from Atlantic, Interscope Hell, even Columbia. Big names. You're not just trending, you're arriving. I can help shape this, guide you, get you a team that actually knows what they're doing. I have a team, Eva said quietly. Greg glanced around the modest living room. Sure, but this isn't scalable. You need image consultants, stylists, vocal coaches, branding advisors, the real industry, and I can deliver that. I don't want to be shaped, she said, firmer now. Greg raised a brow. Eva, the window is small. You don't ride the wave, you drown in it. Let me keep you afloat. Before Eva could answer, Liam stepped into the room. Greg's expression shifted, just slightly. Well, Liam Carter. Didn't expect to see you back. In the mix. Didn't expect you to be knocking on my door, Liam replied. I go where the talent is. No, Liam said. You go where the spotlight is. The tension sparked between them like static. Eva stood, the air between past and present, pressing against her chest. You think this is still about power, she said to Greg. But it's not. You had your chance, and you used it to make me small. Greg smiled, just a little too wide. You're emotional. I get it. Call me when the dust settles. He left without shaking hands. Eva didn't watch him go. That night, she sat with Liam on the back steps, watching Ellie chase fireflies in the yard. Again, but this time, Eva wasn't curled in on herself. She sat tall. Present. I didn't think I'd ever get to say no, she said. You did, Liam said. And it mattered. She looked at him. You're not just the person who believed in me, she said. You're the person who reminded me I was allowed to believe in myself. He looked back at her. That means more than you know. There was a long pause. Then she reached over and placed her hand on top of his. Not as a thank you, not as an impulse, but as a choice. Liam didn't move. I'm scared again, she said. I'm here again, he replied. And together they sat in the glow of porch light and fireflies, while the world outside roared with a tension they no longer feared. Eva once thought fame would come with fireworks, something dazzling, undeniable, loud. Instead, it arrived like a slow, persistent drumbeat, growing louder by the hour until it filled every room she entered, even in silence. The days following, her audition blurred into a dizzying cycle. Interviews, stylists, scheduling calls, social media surges, producers asking for last-minute song changes. Each morning, someone new wanted a piece of her voice, her story, her image. They called it a moment. Eva called it noise. She went along at first, sighed yes when she wanted to ask questions, smiled when she felt small. Let her hair be cut. Let her songs be adjusted. Let the world carry her like a leaf in a current, because she feared that if she resisted, it would all vanish again. And somewhere in that current, Liam began to fade, not because he left, but because she stopped reaching back. It began with missed dinners. I'll be late, she'd text. Meeting ran over. Then came the mornings where she left before Ellie woke up and returned long after bedtime. Liam tried to understand, tried to tell himself this was the cost of dreams fulfilled, but the quiet in the house grew heavier each night. And then came the call. Dina Holloway, all brisk professionalism, asked Liam to step aside. It's time Eva worked with people at "The next level," she said. "You've done wonders bringing her here, Liam, but she's flying now. She needs altitude." He said nothing for a long moment. "Does Eva know about this?" "She will," Dina said gently. "It's just how things go." That evening, Liam waited until the house was still. Then he went into the studio, the place where it had all started, and opened the folder on his desktop labeled Eva First Takes. He played the raw audio from the Subway song. No filters, no enhancements, just her voice. Gritty, human, unfinished, and perfect. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. Maybe it had been enough to help her take off. Maybe not every story needed to end with staying, but still. He missed her. Meanwhile, Eva stood in front of a mirror taller than any she'd ever seen, in a downtown dressing room that smelled like jasmine and expensive leather. A stylist adjusted the sleeves of her designer gown, murmuring about color tones and stage lighting. "You need stronger contouring," someone said behind her. "We want your cheekbones to pop on camera." Eva stared at her reflection. She looked striking, elegant, composed, but not like herself. Not like the woman who once sang on a park bench in Liam's coat, hands trembling, heart bare. When no one was looking, she slipped the treble clef necklace from under her collar and held it in. Her palm dot, it was still warm. The next morning, Liam found Eva in the kitchen for the first time in over a week. She was already dressed, jeans, a hoodie, no makeup. Her hair pulled back. She looked like Eva again. "Morning," she said softly. He nodded, cautious. She took a deep breath. "I need to talk to you." He waited. "They asked me to re-record Train," she said. "Said the original is too raw. Not polished enough for a single release." He kept his expression neutral. "What did you say?" "I told them no." Liam blinked. "I said it was recorded by someone who didn't touch a single dial, and that's what made it real." His chest tightened. "Dina also told me I should start working with another producer," Eva continued. "Someone who can scale my artistry." "And?" he asked. "I told her my artistry doesn't need scaling. It needs grounding." She looked up, eyes fierce and clear. "I don't want to be a product, Liam. I want to be heard. Like I was in your studio. Like I was the day Ellie handed me that drawing and said I was loud enough." He said nothing. But something broke open behind his ribs, something tight and painful and beautiful. "I'm sorry I pulled away," Eva said. "I got scared again, but differently this time. Scared of losing myself in the applause." Liam finally spoke. "Fame is loud. Louder than truth sometimes, but the people who last, they find a way to sing through it." She stepped closer. "I want you to stay in this with me, not as a stepping stone, as a partner." "You sure about that?" She smiled. "I'm surer than I've ever been about anything." That night, the three of them, Eva, Liam, and Ellie, sat on the back porch with mugs of hot cocoa wrapped in blankets. The city lights blinked in the distance. The fireflies had returned, blinking softly in the bushes like tiny, pulsing stars. Ellie sat between them. Content. Eva reached into her guitar case and pulled out a notebook. "I wrote something new," she said, "last night. Woke up at 3 a.m. and it just poured out. Can we hear it?" Ellie asked, her eyes lighting up. Eva smiled and opened the notebook. She began to hum. fingers tapping rhythm on her knee. The song was about not knowing where you belonged until someone opened their door. About learning that home wasn't always a place. It could be a voice, a hand, a promise kept. And as she sang, Liam felt something inside him settle. This wasn't the end of the story, not even close. And then Silence.Spotlight.Eva stepped forward. Each step toward the microphone felt like a heartbeat. She didn't look at the audience. Not yet. She took her place at center stage, looked down at the necklace around her neck, the treble clef. Charm Liam had given her, and wrapped her fingers around it. Then she looked up. The first note was soft. So soft the audience leaned in instinctively, drawn into the stillness. Her song was a new one, unreleased, untested, untamed. She had written it after that night on the porch, after choosing her truth over the spotlight's demands. It was called Home in the Hollow, and it wasn't about houses or cities or applause. It was about voices. The ones that stayed when everything else had gone quiet. The song moved like water, flowing from minor chords to hopeful rises. It told of a girl who thought she'd been forgotten, only to discover someone had been listening all along. Halfway through, she closed her eyes, and she let go of the past, of the fear, of the version of herself that believed she had to earn her worth through perfection. She just sang. In the control room, a producer whispered, "We've got something here. This is a moment." On social media, the hashtags began appearing before the bridge finished. Hashtag Eva Monroe, hashtag Sound Rise semifinals, hashtag This is home. When the final note faded, Eva opened her eyes. The room was still for half a breath. It was like the world forgot how to exhale, and then the wave came. The audience rose to their feet, cheering, clapping, crying. The judges stood as one, nodding, one of them wiping away tears. A camera zoomed in on Ellie, jumping up and down in her seat, arms in the air. A radiant blur of joy. And just beyond the glare of the stage lights, Eva saw Liam. He wasn't cheering. He was watching her with a quiet, unwavering expression. Not surprised, not amazed. Just proud. And that, more than anything else, made her throat tighten. Backstage, the crew swarmed around her. Makeup artists, showrunners, someone with a clipboard, another with a mic. But Eva kept walking, past them all, out the side door into the cool night air. She didn't want noise. She wanted real. She found Liam and Ellie waiting just beyond the gated crowd, beneath a small maple tree whose leaves fluttered gently in the thin breeze. Before either of them could speak, Eva reached out and hugged Liam tight. Fierce, grateful. He hugged her back without a word. "You found it," he murmured. She pulled back. "No," she said. "We did." Ellie tugged on Ava's hand. "Are you going to win the whole thing now?" Ava crouched to her level. "I already won, kiddo." "How?" "Because I remembered who I am. And I remembered who helped me get there." Ellie gave a small, satisfied nod. "Good. Now you can sing at my school play if I mess up." Ava laughed and hugged her, heart full. That night, they returned home to the little brownstone that had become more than shelter. It had become origin. Ava set her guitar against the wall, kicked off her shoes, and sat on the couch in her dress, not caring that the hem wrinkled. Liam joined her, a warm mug of tea in each hand. I got a call, he said after a moment. Yeah? Someone wants to option your story. A docuseries. Ava raised an eyebrow. Already? He nodded. Are you going to say yes? She asked. He looked at her. Depends. On? Whether the ending's been written yet. She smiled softly. It hasn't. Silence settled over them, again comfortable. Now, not heavy. The kind of silence filled with understanding. She leaned her head against his shoulder. I want to keep making music, she said. But only if it feels like this. Like what? Like breathing. Liam's hand found hers. Then let's never hold our breath again. 2 weeks later, the finale of Soundrise arrived with the kind of spectacle only live television could conjure: spotlights, confetti, a roaring crowd, and a string of high-energy musical acts choreographed down to the second. But Ava wasn't there for the spectacle. She was there to sing one song. One that mattered. Backstage, her dressing room buzzed with quiet chaos. Stylists offered last-minute touch-ups. A production assistant reviewed the run sheet. Someone handed her a mic pack. Another reminded her about camera angles. She heard none of it. In front of her was the mirror. On the counter, a small photograph leaned against a bottle of water. It was Ellie's drawing, now laminated and travel-worn. You are loud enough. Now. Eva exhaled slowly. She wasn't nervous anymore. She was clear. The night's finalists had each prepared a duet with a special guest. Some sang with celebrities, others with former contestants. Eva had made a different choice. She stood at the microphone as the host's voice boomed across the stage. In a show first, our final performer has chosen to sing tonight's piece with the very person who first believed in her talent. Her original producer and dear friend Liam Carter. A collective murmur rolled through the audience. And then applause, not the explosive kind, but warm, curious, intrigued. From the wings, Liam stepped forward. He wore a charcoal button-down and dark jeans, simple and timeless. His hair had grown slightly, the faint silver near his temples catching the lights. A guitar hung from his shoulder. He looked calm, but Eva could see the tremble in his fingers as he adjusted the strap. They stood side by side, facing each other. No lights changed. No pyrotechnics fired. No dramatic cue. Just two people. And one quiet chord. The song they played was called Room Enough. Ava had written the lyrics in Liam's kitchen one night after Ellie fell asleep with a book across her chest. It was about growing a life around the empty spaces left by loss. About love that doesn't fix you but stays while you fix yourself. It was slow, deliberate, honest. Liam's single quotes voice entered on the second verse, soft, untrained, but real. And the harmony they created wasn't perfect. It was true. Midway through the performance, the camera zoomed in on Eva. The producers would later describe the moment as unscripted magic. Her eyes shimmered not with nerves, but with memory. The park bench, the subway, the couch in the house she once thought she'd never belong in. She smiled, just slightly, and kept singing. When the final note faded, there was silence again. But this time, it wasn't filled with fear. It was filled with knowing. Then the audience rose, this time not in frenzied cheers, but in a wave of still, reverent admiration. Applause came gently, like a rainfall. Liam stepped back. Ava turned to the crowd. She bowed not for the win, but for the journey. Backstage, confetti still falling through the air, the show's executive producer approached her. "You know," he said, "whether you take the title or not. You just gave. The performance people will remember." Eva nodded. "That's all I wanted." "You turned down a solo act for the most watched finale of the season." "I didn't want a solo act," she said. "I wanted a full circle," the producer smiled. "You got it." Later that night, back at the house, Liam brewed chamomile tea while Ellie insisted on building a victory fort in the living room using pillows, blankets, and string lights. Eva sat on the floor, barefoot in sweatpants, her hair pulled back in a loose braid. The glamour of the stage had vanished, but the light in her eyes remained. Liam handed her a mug. "Well?" he asked. "I don't care about the trophy," she said. "I don't need to win." He nodded, sipping his tea. "Besides," she added, "you already gave me more than any show could." "What's that?" "A place to come back to." He met her eyes, always. They sat in silence for a long time, watching Ellie crawl into the fort with a flashlight and begin whispering bedtime stories to her stuffed rabbit. Eva looked around at the room, the mismatched couch, the chipped coffee table, the barely hanging curtain rods. It wasn't grand, but it was home. And it was hers. The phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen. Dina Holloway to one new voicemail. She didn't check it. She turned the phone face down and tucked herself into the fort beside Ellie. "Tell me a story," the little girl said. Eva smiled. "How about one about a girl who thought she was lost, but really she was just on her way? Does it have singing?" "It has a lot of singing. Does she get scared?" "Sometimes." "Does someone find her?" Eva looked at Liam. "Through the blanket flap, she finds herself," she whispered. "But someone stays long enough to show her the map." Ellie nodded sleepily. "That's a good story." And as the string lights glowed above them like soft stars, Eva knew this chapter wasn't the end. It was the pause before something even more beautiful. A full year had passed. Autumn returned to the city with crisp winds and amber leaves that swirled like memories at every street corner. The air smelled of roasted chestnuts and fresh beginnings, and the trees lining the brownstone sidewalks had begun to trade their green for gold. Eva stood beneath one of them, just outside the modest brick building that now bore a new, hand-painted sign, The Hollow House, a music workshop for voices that haven't been heard. She ran her fingers over the lettering, smiling to herself. This had been Liam's idea. Not. "Everyone's meant to climb charts," he once said. "But everyone deserves to be heard." The opening ceremony was small by design. No camera crews, no news outlets, no hashtags. Just former contestants from Soundrise, a handful of neighborhood kids with second-hand guitars, and a handful of friends who had become family. A table of baked goods Ellie had helped prepare stood near the entrance, including her proudest contribution, victory muffins. Inside, the once unused basement of the brownstone had been transformed into something close to sacred wooden. Floors, mismatched chairs, microphone stands, a wall of gently used instruments. There was even a corner with a chalkboard where Ellie had written in colorful, shaky letters, "This is where quiet people sing loud." Eva opened the event with a single note from her guitar. Then another, then her voice. She didn't sing the song that made her famous. She didn't need to. Instead, she chose Room Enough, the duet she and Liam had performed during the Soundrise finale. But this time she sang it alone, letting the chords stretch, letting the silences speak. She didn't polish the edges, didn't fix the raw notes. She let them breathe. And as her final lyric faded, no one clapped, not because they didn't want to, but because they were holding something sacred in their hands and they didn't want to drop it too soon. Afterward, as the guests mingled and the kids explored the studio space, Liam found her in the back garden. She was sitting on the bench beneath the maple tree, the same spot where they had waited after that first live performance. A year ago, a lifetime ago, he sat beside her. "Not bad for a girl with no place to go," he said gently. She smiled. "Not bad for a man who gave up music." Temporarily, he smirked. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the kind shared by people who had walked through storms and come out whole. Eva turned to him. "You know, I still get offers. I know. Touring, interviews, big money, and I don't need them." She looked out across the backyard, where Ellie was showing two kids how to hold a ukulele properly, her hands flying in animated explanation. "I found the thing that matters," Eva said. "And it wasn't in a stadium," Liam nodded. "It was in your voice." "No," she said, voice soft. "It was in yours." He looked at her, surprised. "You never asked me to become something else," she continued. "You just helped me find what was already there." "I didn't do that alone." She turned toward him. Their hands met quietly, naturally, the way they always had, like they'd been doing this for years and only now realized what it meant. "I don't know what this is," she said. "I just know it's home." Liam smiled, his thumb gently tracing hers. "Then let's not name it," he whispered. "Let's just live it." That evening, after the guests had gone and the last muffin had disappeared from the tray, Ellie curled up on the couch between them with a notebook in her lap. "What are you writing?" Eva asked. "A song," she said proudly. "It's about a girl with a guitar who sings so loud she makes stars blink." "That's a powerful voice," Liam said. "She learned it from someone," Ellie replied. Not looking up, Eva laughed quietly and kissed the top of her head. "I think she learned it from a few people," she said. Later, when the house was quiet and the lights were low, Liam took out an old cassette tape. He pressed play. It was Hannah's voice, recorded on an old handheld recorder. "If this ever plays again, I hope you've let the music back in. I hope you've forgiven yourself. And I hope wherever you are, there's still a song in your chest. Because love, real love, it always leaves a melody behind." Eva sat beside him, listening. She didn't cry. Neither did he. They just held hands. And listened. That night, in the stillness of the early morning hours, Eva rose and stepped into the studio. Moonlight filtered through the skylight, painting the piano in silver. She sat down and opened her notebook. Her pen hovered over the page. Then she began to write slowly, carefully, purposefully. The song that saved us all. It wasn't a ballad. It wasn't even a song anyone else would ever sing. It was a promise that every voice matters, that every silence holds a story, that every broken chord can still become a symphony, if someone stays long enough to listen. And so the story didn't. And it became a chorus, carried forward by those who once thought they had nothing left to say. We'd love to know, where are you watching from? Whether you're tuning in from a quiet town, a busy city, or somewhere in between, your presence here truly means the world to us. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone you love, or someone you once were, please consider subscribing to the channel. We share stories that speak to the heart, and we'd be honored to have you join our growing circle of kind souls. And finally, thank you for spending your time with us today. May your days be filled with music, meaning, and the quiet miracles that often begin with simply being seen. Until next time.